You got some notes on it.
Oh boy.
So, Grandma, tell me real quick about this book and how you got all this information together, because a lot of it is about the Manley family.
Yes.
Okay, so how did you find all this stuff?
When we went out to California many years ago, all the family, with Peter and his family, I had realized that my children looked different, and I realized that I couldn't recognize the image of my father in my mind.
Okay.
And before we left California, I made a call to Aunt Ernie, who was Mary Ann's mom. Uncle Clem was very ill and on his last days. And I said, could I have some pictures of my father and the family? I don't remember what he looks like.
Okay, and how long ago was this?
Your mother was about 5.
Okay.
It was years ago.
So it's
Around
been-
70s and the 70s.
Yeah, when we went out on the train with our families together.
Yeah, it was a long
A
time.
long time
A
ago.
long time ago.
71, 72.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are old.
She is.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
You're getting off to a
I'm
good
sorry.
start.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Anyway,
You wanted to get some information on your dad and
well, yes,
the
because
family.
I realized Susie looked different than Sharon. You know that there was something going on, and genetically I realized I could not remember what my father looked like.
Okay.
She said, "I won't do it now, but when Uncle Clem's gone, I'll send you some pictures," which she did.
Okay.
These are the result of some of those pictures. But it also got me back in touch with her and her daughter Mary Ann, who decided in 2013 that she would put together a Manley family reunion. I have 2 first cousins that I didn't know I had.
Okay.
Who had one come from Texas and one had come down from San Jose. Met them, and this book is a result. And so she asked us to put together as much information as we could, and you'll notice in the back of this I have all of the information of your family and Susie's family and Steve's family. And as I say, it's a rough draft,
Sure.
but it's what I had to
You
put
got
together.
information on
Information
the
and
Manley
pictures,
family.
more important.
And
Yeah.
we didn't come to that, did we?
No, but Kurt did.
Yeah, okay.
Kurt came. They met me in Carlsbad,
This is in 2013?
2013. Kurt and Maritza came. I have pictures of that at home. And Steve was there. And Susie and her husband, Mike Immelman,
They came out
they
there.
came there.
Okay.
And we had a lovely afternoon. We sang around the rollaway piano, you know, where they play the music. We all sang around the piano. Everybody had pictures. And it was a great afternoon. So this is why this book,
That's how this come about.
and these pictures were sent to Peter and Janet from Mary Ann's sister Suzanne. Some of them,
Some of them are
duplicate.
in here.
Yes, sending us the information that they had kept over the years that we lost track of.
Yeah. And you had kind of not really known any of this information or didn't have a good memory, so to speak, of
No.
your father.
No,
And that is because he passed away when you were young. How old were you when he passed away?
I was 7 when he died, but he was an alcoholic and he died of cirrhosis of the liver. And my last memories of him, I blocked a lot of them because they were not happy memories. Mom was crying a lot, and
Yeah.
it was not a good thing to remember. So in my youth, I just blanked a lot of that out. So I
Yeah.
had no memory of very few memories. More
Sure.
certainly, Peter's got
Yeah.
more than I do.
Being the older brother. Not,
Yeah.
I don't want to call that out or anything, but, being,
she has more memories than I do.
oh, she does.
Well,
Okay.
only because Mary Ann kept in touch with me, and I would
Through
go
the
down
years.
to there, San Diego,
talk.
frequently, especially after Mel died.
Yeah.
And she would share with me memories of her dad,
Okay.
who was the youngest Manley brother, and my dad, not only supplying pictures but memories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
recently,
she did a really good job.
oh yes, she
Keeping track of that. So
Yeah.
kind of through your own investigative skills, you were
Yeah.
able to kind of recreate memories that maybe you didn't have.
that is good.
Yeah. Is that what happened?
No, but when I was in high school, they gave us tests to see what our interest would be in our
Yeah.
futures.
Yeah.
Mine was a detective.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, you did
Yeah.
some detective work
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
to figure out your biological father was named Bill.
right.
And this here, we have a picture of Bill and his mother and father.
His mother
Okay.
and Pop, his father.
Okay.
And this is Mary, who was Pop's daughter from a previous marriage. He
Okay.
had been married before.
Who
And
he
Pop-
had been married before.
Pop, and he had
Okay.
4 children before. And
Uh-huh.
she was one of them
Okay.
that he kept in touch with.
And this woman
This
here,
is Paula
Okay.
Schmingling, who was German.
and that is Bill's mother.
Yes, she immigrated from Germany
Mm-hmm.
to go to the World's Fair in Chicago in
10 was it? 1910?
something like that.
1901.
Early
Yeah.
1900s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long
She
time
wa-
ago.
No, okay.
She was a handwriting analysis at the fair,
Uh-huh.
and that's
Interesting.
where she met Pop.
And that's where she met Pop. And what was he doing at the World Fair? Was he
Well,
just visiting? Is that kind of where everyone?
he was from Chicago. He
Oh,
and the
okay.
boys
Yeah.
lived in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and he was an engineer, maintenance engineer.
Gotcha.
And I got to go in their home years later
Mm-hmm.
with Mary Ann,
Yeah.
and
So-
he and the boys lived in
So
Chicago.
Pop, as
Yes.
you call him,
Pop Manley.
married.
Yes.
Sorry.
There, he took care of me as a baby.
Okay. So this was his
Paula.
second wife.
Right.
What was her name?
Paula.
Paula,
Mm-hmm.
who then they conceived Bill,
Yes.
who is your biological father.
Yes.
So we touched on a little bit about some of that history of your guys' biological mother, and kind of how her and Bill came about.
Yes.
But I'd kind of like to get your take on it to kind of clear some of the questions I may have. But your biological mother, I know her as Mimi, right? What was her name?
Margaret Catherine Gaines.
Margaret Catherine Gaines. So your guys' biological mother became pregnant while she was at college in Seattle, Washington, with you.
Love child.
Love child.
Yeah.
And that created this shotgun wedding,
Shotgun wedding.
as you call it. And then your guys' grandfather sent her to La Jolla, to their vacation home,
Yes.
basically where she then conceived Uncle Peter.
No, I was
No.
conceived.
Or I'm sorry, where she
Oh,
gave
yeah.
birth
No,
No?
she
No.
gave birth to Peter in Seattle.
in Seattle.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
3 months
Okay.
after I was born. Yeah.
So that's right. So it was after you were born, the shotgun wedding took place, and
No,
then
no.
Either before or after.
Before or
I'm
after,
not sure
one of
of
the-
the timing,
No,
but
I heard the story that Grandfather Gaines, we called him Ferd,
okay,
that he took Mom and Peter's father
mm-hmm,
across Sound from Seattle
okay,
on the ferry, had them married, brought them back, got off the ferry, took Mother by the arm, and she never saw Peter's father again.
So was Peter born at this time?
No, she was pregnant.
She was still pregnant.
And she stayed in Seattle by herself
Mm-hmm.
in an apartment. This is my mother's story to
Okay,
me.
okay,
And had Peter. And after he was born, back in that day it was shameful. She couldn't go home to Montana. But Ferd and Grandma had a home in La Jolla. And she took Peter and they moved down to La Jolla in the summer.
when did Ferd divorce them?
I don't know that.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know that information. But he was an
It was
attorney.
before, I think, they went to La Jolla.
Was it before?
so there was an annulment of
An
sorts
annulment, probably. Yeah.
that made that divorce. Now, did your mother ever speak to Peter's biological father again after she had left to La Jolla?
No. And Mother told me years later that she was told after my biological father died that Ferd wanted to adopt Peter as his son. And Mother wouldn't allow that.
Okay.
And Ferd told her at that time that for 5 years after they were married, that Peter's father had been sending letters to Butte, Montana, to the only address that he
That
had
he
for
knew
Mother.
for Mimi.
And Ferd burned the letters, never let Mother see them.
My father's name was Harold Lantencore.
Okay. And that was your biological father.
Yeah.
And you did some research later on in life.
Yeah, about Harold, yes, I
Yeah. And kind of discovered that as we talked yesterday, as you're going into the Air Force at 19 is when you discovered that
did. My
Bill
name was Lantencore, not man.
Right, not Manly, yeah. Okay, all right, so that helps clear that up. So once you guys moved to La Jolla, Mimi, your mother, meets Bill.
Right.
And this is where the Manly family comes into
Right.
place.
He came to La Jolla first, and his brothers and his father, Pop, followed later on. And they were working at a filling station in
Okay.
La Jolla
Yes, yeah.
by the
Okay.
arcade there. There's a picture somewhere.
Okay,
And this is all Mother's story to me.
Yeah.
Mother's car broke down. She was uptown with Peter, and he was just a few years old. Car broke down, and Bill, Daddy Bill, had to keep her car, drove her home, and when he went back down to take her car to her 3 or 4 days later, asked her out.
asked her on a date.
That was how that happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
now was Daddy Bill ever married before?
No.
No, okay.
He-
So,
He had been in seminary in
Okay.
Chicago
Okay.
as the eldest son. They were Catholic. And he got a girl pregnant. They were not allowed to marry. The story I got was that the mother and child died in childbirth. And that is when Daddy Bill left Chicago.
they all moved out to the coast.
Well, he went out first.
yeah,
And why they went to La Jolla, nobody seems to know.
no one knows.
But I think he went as far west as he could go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of get away
A
from it.
side note is that they drove across the desert from Yuma to San Diego, and the roadway was made of wood.
Yeah.
The road from Yuma to San Diego across the desert was
wood.
Yes.
And
Because
they
they were sandy.
And it was this one-way road,
Yeah,
and they had
yeah.
pull-offs if somebody was coming the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like the Oregon Trail, but they had an engine
Yeah.
that pulled them instead of some ox, I imagine. That was post the ox pulling the wagon time. So
No,
what,
they had an old Ford.
they had an old Ford that made it that long drive. I imagine those top speeds would have only been 30, 40 miles an
Yeah.
hour.
And on the wood, I don't know.
A wooden road the whole way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, just from Yuma, Arizona to
Yeah,
San
to
Diego.
San Diego, but yeah, that's
Because the desert sand,
quite-
has no foundation to it.
yeah.
you
So
know.
the wood kind of helps stable it. Well, that's quite the long drive. In this picture here, I find it fascinating because it looks like they were big fans of Christmas.
They were, and
That's quite the Christmas tree.
yes, and he was quite an engineer, inventive. From
Pop
what I
was,
was told.
your
Pop was.
grandfather.
And I think that Daddy Bill was as well.
So what is going on here in this pit? What is all this stuff? We had kind of talked.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that because that was part of our
Tradition.
history growing up. It's a platform that they made, and ours was different than this one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
the platform was under the tree, or the tree was right in the center, and it had a village and whatnot. At least ours did. We would go to bed Christmas Eve, and everything was fine. There would be dishes to wash.
Sure.
In the morning, we'd wake up with a tree and this platform with the train going
The
around
whole
it,
village.
and the water's
Yeah, they
flowing
had
down.
water coming down through they had copper pipe
Yeah.
going all the way up.
And they would set all that
Set
up
it-
once you guys would go to sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and we'd wake up to it.
That's
You
a
remember
lot of
she
work.
telling about that guy that fell into the tree twice and they had to redo it and everything. They did, yeah.
Yeah.
So they got a little happy.
Sure. So they had some help in their creativity.
Yeah.
Probably.
But the panel, the platform is about that
Yeah.
deep on the ground. And
And there's-
during World War II, Mom had the soldiers and she made palm trees out of closed pins. And,
Okay.
And the pond, she had a pond with plastic toy destroyers and stuff. in it.
Really?
And you
And
know
it
what?
had real
And
water in it.
Yes, well, it had goldfish in it, and the plastic killed the goldfish in it. We woke up one morning and the fish were all dead.
Yeah.
And because of the toxicity from the plastic.
And
Yeah.
now they're talking about the micro.
Now we got the microplastics and everything. Well, that's quite the picture, quite the display there.
The reason this is so important to the Manley family is that this platform is still in existence today. Mary Ann's boys, Michael, I think, has it now.
Mary Ann.
No,
No, hold
Mary
on.
Ann is Clem's daughter,
Okay.
Uncle Clem's daughter.
Okay, so he's not
But this
pictured.
platform idea has transferred down through the ages. It went to Uncle Clem and his family after Daddy Bill died, and Mary Ann's family still has it, and it was such a tradition, and they elaborated it on it, that there was a TV station in San Diego that had it
That had it.
on their show
as a-
about it,
as a
and
story.
there's somewhere in here there's a picture of how it is in modern day, and they Michael in his garage has a hook where he puts it up in the garage and brings it down every year, and they fix it up.
And where did they immigrate from?
Ireland. Pop,
Ireland.
Pop was from Ireland.
And he came from Ireland.
Yeah, well,
So-
no, his family immigrated here. I
From-
think he was born
Okay, he
in
was
the
born
East.
here. Now, is this tradition? Because I've never seen anything like this. Now, my wife does like a little village.
I've seen her village.
So I say little; it's actually pretty
Yeah.
large. But is this like a tradition that kind of
absolutely.
carried over from
It's-
Ireland? Do you think, or
I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is that Pop was a maintenance man for the Catholic Church in Chicago in their community.
I think his title was, excuse me,
That's okay.
industrial engineer. So
And-
he knew electrician,
Yeah,
electricity,
Where the
and
piping and
the whole
Yeah.
bit.
the pneumatics of
Yeah,
it?
and he worked for the school board. It's a school, right?
It was a Catholic school attached to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
When Mary Ann and I went there in 2015,
Okay.
the house where they lived was still there. The lady let us come in. We went to the church where he worked during that time, and it's all still there in Chicago.
Crazy. Let me just validate that this is still running and we're live. Good. All right. So help me out here. I'm going to circle back around. So you went seeking for information because you didn't remember a vivid memory of your father. So what did this picture provide you closure on? Because you were confused on how Susie and Sharon, they all kind of look differently. So did this provide any of that closure for you in
Well-
confirming why the children look the way they do?
What it did for me is it made me know about my biological father as a child, because my memories of him were at the end of his life, and he was very ill and very sick.
Yeah.
And I had not good memories.
Yeah.
A few good ones during World War II when he was an air raid warden. But the main thing was, I think when we start having children of our own, we become interested genetically, and that sort of.
Well, and I could be off a little bit, but I see a little bit of Susie
you'll
and
see
your grandmother.
You'll see a
Well,
big.
let's see it.
Yeah, you'll see a big picture of Susie in here. This is just a seminary picture
Of Bill, while he
Bill.
was Daddy Bill, as you call him, and he was, and for all intents and purposes, he was the only father you knew growing up.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
And so,
Well, up until I was 11 or 12, and then Daddy Dave came along.
Yeah.
oh, that's correct. Yeah. So following the passing of Bill, which how old were you when he died again? You were 7, which would have made you 10,
11.
11 years old. So what early memories do you have of
Well,
Grandpa Bill?
The ones
Or
that
Daddy
are,
Bill.
yeah, he took me a couple of times. He was a traveling salesman for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, after he had the gas station, he was I think a milkman, and then he got into business working with refrigeration company.
Okay.
What was the name of
Right
it?
refrigeration.
Right.
Right
refrigeration.
refrigeration. So he was a salesman for them?
Sales, and Mr. Wright really liked him, I guess, because he elevated him in his position from a maintenance guy up
Yeah.
to a salesperson. And one of the some of the customers down in the valley, shoes, Central Valley, El Centro.
El Centro.
El Centro. And so I would go down with him down and when he would
Okay. Travel
spend
a
a
little
couple
bit
of
with him.
days.
Sure.
And I remember one time, the roadways there, if I remember, were domed.
Okay.
They had a dome like this and a high curb.
Huh.
And it was really strange.
Yeah.
But when it rained down there, it would fill those streets up.
Yeah.
Flash flood.
And so that
So the dome kept it from puddling.
that's right, and they kept flooding. But I remember that distinctly because I was there one time when it was
It
really
was
raining.
raining. And it probably turned the edges into rivers.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it
because
was like-
of
and
that
it went
steep curve.
somewhere.
There we go. Yeah.
So that I remember that. We remembered we were playing softball one time, and I was the batter, and he would pitcher and hit me in the nose, broke my nose.
You probably had it coming. Did you charge the mound?
That, and then as he was an air raid warden, and I was a
Yeah,
Yeah,
you were one of
messenger
his
boy.
messengers.
messenger.
So after Pearl Harbor, Daddy Bill became an air raid warden, which is like a reserve deputy for that area, like a reserve fireman type thing.
something, yeah.
And you would deliver messages for him, you and some other
From
neighborhoods.
his districts, he
Yeah.
had,
Yeah,
I think, 3 or 4 streets were a district. and-
Yeah. yeah. Very interesting. So in seminary, so he was at a Bible seminary?
It was a Catholic seminary,
Okay, well-
and traditionally the elder son was the one that,
That
went
was able
to
to go to-
seminary.
okay.
Yeah, and that's when he got this girl pregnant, and
Mm-hmm.
so he, of course, left there and left Chicago.
Did we? Who informed you that this
My mother told me years later,
later?
these stories about because I
Mm-hmm. Sure, I didn't
remembered
know.
him not,
Yeah.
and that was the story that she gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was dying, she told me that they called her from the hospital and said he's dying and calling for you. And when she went there, he wasn't calling for her; he was calling for this girl,
The girl that he had met in seminary.
child. Yeah, it broke mother's heart.
Sure. Yeah. Do we know this gal's name? Like, was there ever any attempt to validate or verify that this had happened?
In my memory, mother's told me her name. It was either Louise or something like that. Started
Yeah.
with an L. That's all I can remember. Didn't
So
mean me.
yeah, so it's funny that your mother Mimi and Bill kind of met each other, but both probably pretty heartbroken.
Both of them, yes, very well.
Kind of had some
Yes,
a
Yes.
tough few years
Very
prior to
well.
meeting each other.
yeah. And that's why Marianne became so close. Marianne's mother, Aunt Ernie, became so close to Mom because Aunt Ernie had married Uncle Clem, Bill's brother,
Bill's brother.
very young, very young, and these two sister-in-laws just cleaved together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stayed close their whole lives, even though their lives went different ways. They stayed very close.
Yeah. This may be a silly question, but were you the only biological child from Bill and Mimi?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I knew that, but I just wanted to verify it.
Well, as far as I know.
Yeah, as far as we know. So that's him in seminary over in Chicago.
Right.
This was before he made it out
Yeah.
west.
Yeah. There's Paula.
Okay, so that's your grandmother.
Yes, my biological father's mother, Paula.
Yep,
And that's their wedding.
that's their wedding day.
Yes. And you notice she is brunette, large in stature.
Yeah.
And when Susie saw that, she said, "That's me."
Mm-hmm.
She never could relate to the
To
the blonde.
yeah, the galling
Yeah,
side of things.
Yeah, and she said, that solved
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
The issue.
Her genetics came from the
Yeah.
Manley family.
Absolutely.
More or
Well,
less.
look at Peter and me, how different we are.
Yeah.
He favors my mother in being long and slender,
Uh-huh.
and I'm definitely from the Manley
Yeah,
side.
short.
Short and
So was
Bill
Bill
low to the
short?
ground. Oh, yeah.
Bill was really
he
short.
was about 5, 6, or 7.
Okay, so
yeah.
he was a little guy.
All the boys were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at 11 years old, you probably were about his height.
No, I didn't.
As
I
tall as
don't
you were.
really. I had to spurt it, kid spurt. So
Yeah.
I don't ever recall him being shorter or equal
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, but from the pictures. So after Daddy Bill died, how long was it before Mimi remarried? Was it Dave?
Yes,
Or-
Daddy.
yeah,
That's
Bill.
how we differentiate Daddy Dave
Daddy
and Daddy
Dave
Bill.
and Daddy Bill.
We were living in Ferd and Grandma's house in La Jolla. Daddy Bill died. I remember sitting on the couch after he died. Mom was
Now
crying.
we were living in Bird Rock.
Yes, Bird Rock.
There's
Well,
a big difference.
to Peter, it's a big difference.
Okay. What? Why is it a
Bird
big?
Rock was Bird Rock, and I know where it is.
I know. Well, there was a big rock at the end of our street in the ocean.
Yeah.
And it was a bird.
It looked like a bird.
Right.
poop
Kind of like the elephant.
No,
Like
they
the
could have. You could tell this was
This
a
is
bird.
really a
They
bird
pooped
Oh,
rock.
all
all
over.
the birds hung out there. Not because the shape of the rock,
No,
it's
it
because
was
that was the
bird,
restroom.
Yeah.
Seabirds.
I got you.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it was like a
Yeah, just a
suburb,
hangout
so,
place
yeah.
for
Yeah.
the birds.
We can get into that later as we
Yeah,
get into
yeah, yes.
We gotta
but-
get into that. So, Daddy Bill passed away. Was the Manley family still very close to you guys following his death? Or?
Uncle Clem, Mary Ann's dad,
So it'd been your uncle.
he was working for the La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club. He was busy raising their family.
Yep.
They lived in La Jolla Shores. And Uncle Bud, I think he was in the Navy at that time.
They were both in the Navy at one time, I thought. No, Bud was in the Navy.
Yeah,
and
Bud
I
was-
thought Clem was in the service too.
I don't remember.
So Bud's the
that.
younger brother.
Yeah.
He's the youngest.
Okay,
So
well,
Bill's-
let's stop. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, so Daddy Bill's the oldest,
Right,
and then you have Uncle Clem,
Right.
and then Buddy.
Bud.
right.
Or Bud.
His name was Walter,
Okay,
but we called him Uncle Bud.
Uncle Bud. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And he had two daughters who I didn't even know about, but I met through Mary Ann.
Okay.
After-
How did you not know about them? Did they come long after you were?
Well, Uncle Bud was never around so
Okay.
yeah,
much.
he was a sort of a loner.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
And-
being as
He-
the youngest, I guess, and
Yeah.
he just wasn't connected. And
no,
he drank a lot
no,
too.
He
I
was
believe.
a heavy
Yeah.
drinker. Yeah. But
Whatever. Go ahead.
no, but so he really wasn't in my memory bank at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
But when Mary Ann lived in and Suzanne lived in Pacific Beach, they would have me come down. And one time, his two daughters, Diane Holt and Katie Calloway, came up from their homes, and I got to meet these two first cousins. that
Gotcha.
I didn't
Bud's
even know
kids that you didn't even know.
existed. Yeah, that was after Mel died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
So, how long after Daddy Bill died?
Okay, Daddy
Did
Bill
Mamie
died
Gr-
during World War II. Mom was working at the ration board, and Daddy Dave was in the Coast Guard, and he was driving his commanding officer. That was his job, and he would come into the ration board. You know, we all had.
What is a ration board? Is it like a restaurant, or what was it like?
No. We had tickets. Everything. Everything was in shortage, and it was going to the war effort.
Yeah.
So you had tickets for how much gasoline you could buy, how
Okay,
much
how much
sugar you could
food.
buy, shoes.
Yeah.
You know, and so you had these tickets that you. I guess
ran
you
out of
ran
tickets,
out.
you didn't
went
get
You
to
don't
the
get
ration
food.
board.
Yeah, you don't get your ration. So
Yeah.
everyone's on kind of a welfare system,
Right.
more
right,
or less, and that's where your mother was working at the
Right.
time.
Right.
And Daddy Dave.
He was coming in to the ration board, and he'd always go to Mother's window.
Yeah. Apparently, she was a looker.
Mother's beautiful. You'll see a picture
Yeah.
of her. Mother had never held a job, and I remember when Daddy Bill died, sitting on the couch with her, and I remember her saying, "I don't know what we're going to do. I have a vacuum cleaner. I guess I can clean houses." You remember the Robesons?
Yeah.
Aunt Frances and Uncle Bob Rose? They weren't relatives, but they were neighbors that lived
Yeah.
across the way.
You all know each
Older
other.
couple. She said to my mom, "I have a lady who's in charge of the ration board, which was just down on the highway, and I'll see if she can get you a job," which she did. And so Mother went to work there, and Grandma and Ferd moved down to take care of Peter and me in their home
Okay.
in Bird Rock.
Okay.
And Grandpa became a lawyer for OPA for the same place where Mom worked.
Yeah, yeah,
Grandpa Ferd.
Grandpa
Ferd.
Ferd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's how that all happened.
So Daddy Dave meets Mimi
Yeah.
and falls head over heels because she's a beautiful
Yeah.
woman naturally. I mean,
Yeah.
look at her daughter.
Oh, God.
But
It was really, really, really funny.
Yeah.
Because Mom came home one, I don't know if you remember
No, I
this or
don't
not,
remember.
but the front bedroom, which wasn't our bedroom, but it was Mom's room, she got us dressed, undressed, ready for bed early. She said, I'm going out with a friend. I want you kids to be all settled in.
Yeah.
And we were in our jammies in the front bedroom, which was by the street. And up comes this car, and Peter and I jump out of bed. His mother's walking to the car, run to the front porch and say, "Bye, Mommy." Daddy Dave didn't even know she had children.
Oh, no.
And Mom said, I told him, if you want to forget it, it's okay. And he
yeah,
said,
if you
"Oh,
want to
let's-"
drive away,
Yeah,
drive away.
let's-
How old was your mother at this time? How old would she have been? So you were. So what?
Mother
Was it 1 or 2 years after
Mother
Daddy
was-
Bill had died that she met Daddy Dave? Or
It was still during the war. Daddy Dave was still,
Yeah, so
maybe
it
a year.
was 41, 42,
Yeah,
maybe
43.
around 43 then.
Okay.
No, he
and Mom
died-
was 20 when I was born.
Okay.
36.
So she would have been still in her 20s.
Oh, yeah. And abused.
Very young.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And so she had, Daddy Dave had no idea she had some baggage. and you guys were the baggage.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
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 It was-
So they set up a date and you guys go running out there. So you would have been 12, 13, maybe?
Yeah,
Give or
maybe,
take?
yeah,
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 12,
yeah.
13. That would put
Yeah.
you around 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you go ruin that for her, but Daddy Dave didn't seem to care.
No. And he would come and take us for rides in the Jeep
Oh,
on
really?
the weekends and stuff.
So how long did they court or date?
I don't know. I can't remember my child's mind, but I remember coming home from school one day, and Mom was home from work, and she had taken a bath and said, "Come in. I want to talk to you." She said, "Daddy, Dave and I are going to get married," and I was so happy.
And he had met you guys by that
Oh, and
point
he-
and took
yes,
you
and
for
he-
rides.
He
And
was
so
nice.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy.
Yeah.
When she's done, I'll tell you a story that'll really.
Well, tell I'm
yeah,
done.
go ahead.
Well, I had a problem of always, not very responsible. And so it was one time I was supposed to be home for dinner at a certain time and I didn't make it. I was 15 or 16 years old.
Okay.
He took me out in the garage and spanked me with a belt.
At 15 or 16 years
And you
old?
don't think I was, you don't think I was so embarrassed that it
Yeah, that'd be
didn't
embarrassing.
change my life? Well, it changed my life.
It changed your life. What life lesson did you learn from that?
I learned that be on time
Yeah.
and you won't be embarrassed in front of your family.
Yeah,
That's
right.
basically what I
Yeah, so now
Peter-
I've been a 15, 16-year-old boy. If my dad would have wanted to get that kind of physical with me, I may have swelled up on him.
Yeah.
Like, did that, was there just so much respect for him? You
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
challenge him
Oh,
whatsoever?
yeah.
Was that because of he was a military man, or what was that
I
because?
remember when Peter came in from the garage, it was a detached garage in the
Mm-hmm.
back. Peter came in with his head down, and when Dave
Dave.
came in crying. He was crying because he'd had to
He
spank
had
Peter.
to whip his butt.
Yeah. He had never had children of his own.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been married once before, very briefly.
So he felt obligated as now, they
He was
weren't
the
married
father.
yet.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was
yes,
the
they were
father.
married.
So they were
They
married
were
at this
married.
point. So
I'm
they're
sure Mother was the one driving
so
that.
he's like, hey, I'm the father now.
Yes.
And I
This boy can't be
disrespected
late.
the
Yeah.
family, and that's
And it come with a whooping,
with a belt.
with
on
a
it.
belt whooping, a big leather belt probably.
There was no. Oh, it was awful. It was awful. I still am
Like-
embarrassed about the fact.
That would be.
Because it didn't hurt, or, it's
Yeah,
just
it
a-
wouldn't probably.
But
hurt.
he made a point.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very, I don't know, it's
So that
a good point. It made a
yeah,
good one.
yeah. So that's a good life lesson.
Yeah.
So you learn not to be late by missing the bus. I remember that story for school. It's because you had to run to
That
school.
apparently didn't follow through.
Well, it took you a couple years, and then you.
But you know,
Tell
it
them
was a
about your
reminder.
newspaper episode, brother.
well, that was in my. I didn't get a whipping for that, but I got a.
No.
Probably should have.
Yeah.
What you were delivering papers?
I had I delivered the San Diego Union, which was a newspaper, in the morning, and then I had another job of delivering these grocery store handouts. You know, they're free, and you just pass them out. And I was, I was a good comic book reader. And I had got a couple of good new comic books, and I had all these papers to pass around in the town, and I didn't want to do that. You know, I wanted to look at my new thing. And there was a cave down by the beach, down in Bird Rock, that you could walk down into, and I visited there every once in a while, and I took my comic books down, and I took the papers down, and I was reading the comic books, and I said, I'm going to be late with these papers. I'll just toss them in the ocean. And there they were,
Floating away.
floating out in the Pacific Ocean, all of these.
How old were you?
Well, I had to be less than 16.
It was before.
This was-
before Daddy Dave and Mom
Okay.
were married.
So maybe you needed
Who
a
was
good.
it, Daddy Dave found me, or was it Daddy?
No.
Was it Daddy Bill?
It was the police.
Oh, I can't. Well, yeah.
And
because-
Daddy Bill had died. I remember the day
Yeah.
very, very,
Okay.
because Peter didn't come home from his paper route. And Mom was getting concerned, and he was going to be late for school and all of that, and he never showed up. And we asked everybody around the neighborhood, nobody'd seen him. And so Mom called the police, and they started looking for him. And they found his bike parked on the cliff.
Yeah, near the cave.
The cave was down below
that's
the
right.
cliff.
That was very, very nice.
And found his bike.
Little siblings are good at recalling when
Yeah.
big siblings
Well,
get in trouble.
Mother thought he was gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's scary. That's pretty
And
scary.
he ran
Yeah,
down,
I
and there he
remember now,
was,
yeah.
huh?
I was
Looking
a-
up.
Looking,
They
reading
were
comic
calling
books.
his name, huh? And there his papers floating around. I remember it. It's clear as day.
Yeah, and so that was before I had a morning route. I was younger then.
Yeah.
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 So what happened? So I assume customers paid for those papers, right?
No, they were
They're-
just handouts.
Okay.
The people that paid for them was the grocery store. I guess.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you discarded their papers
Sure.
into the ocean. Did you
Yeah,
get in
and
trouble? Did
yeah,
you get fired?
I knew that the people that I gave it to threw them away anyway.
Oh,
so I
sure.
said, what
Yeah.
the hell?
Yeah,
I just tossed them. Yeah,
I'll stay
I
here.
was being helpful.
I'll stay here and read my comics. Yeah, it's almost a form of ghost employment, right? You're not fulfilling your duties. So I assume you got fired from that.
I think I did.
Well, maybe it was good that Grandpa Dave or Daddy Dave gave you a whooping. Sounds like you deserved
I
it.
earned it. Yeah, it was a little late, but I finally got it.
You
Yeah.
finally got it and learned your lesson
That's right.
the hard way. So as a young boy, I remember when Dad wasn't home, Mom would bring down the thunder, and she had a wooden ruler, pretty thick. But even then, Mom's really small. She couldn't hurt us. So she got around that by making us drop trowel. We had to drop our trousers,
Oh, yes.
and on a bare butt, it would hurt
It
some.
hurts a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
right, yeah.
I assume Daddy Dave kept your trousers on.
No, I had he took
He-
take those
He
pants
took your
off.
trousers down.
Bend over. Yeah. That was I.
Oh, that is
Very
embarrassing.
embarrassed.
But you didn't think twice about challenging him. You knew you deserved it.
Well, yeah, I didn't have. I knew I was.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I was late, and I didn't
Yeah.
call. And,
You
you know,
deserved
and
it.
it might have been more. It might have been because Mom was more worried because of the previous.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it could have,
So
sure.
he was angry.
So he was trying to basically defend Mother
Yeah.
I would-
by disciplining you. Like, hey, look at the stress and
And they were
worry.
sitting there eating, enjoying it, knowing that I
No, I'll tell you.
waiting.
Now, was she the little sister that would kind of mock you and make fun of you?
No,
She wasn't.
you're a lovely sister.
So
Yeah.
she didn't Because I got two daughters that would, if one of them gets in trouble, they kind of take pleasure in that.
No,
there
but
was
that wasn't the case,
no,
huh?
No. Peter was always very sweet, very kind, but he was a bit lackadaisical.
I don't explain that.
Well, like he didn't want to, he could see no reason why he had to deliver those papers that day. He really didn't want to do it.
didn't want to do
He
it.
knew they were all going to go in the trash anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he was definite in what he wanted to do.
Sure.
But he was not mean-spirited, ever.
Yeah.
No. But, and Daddy Dave wasn't either. He was
Yeah.
the
So that
sweetest
broke
guy.
Daddy Dave's heart
Oh,
to have
my
to spank.
gosh.
Because I remember spanking my kid for the first time. I didn't like it at all.
No.
It's not a,
He came in the house crying, I kid you not.
really?
Yeah. And I'm sure Mother was the one that says, you go out there and spank Peter.
You beat it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Hey, that's his role. That's what he signed up for, to be your guys' father, right?
Yeah.
And he walked into
Yeah.
a family that had a young daughter that was 10, a teenage boy. I mean,
They
I'm
called
probably,
him Mr. Manley. He was district manager of the newspaper, and his job was to bring the newspapers in the morning to the paper boys. And we
they
knew
called
all-
who Mr. Manley?
Daddy Dave.
Okay.
His last name was Christie.
Uh-huh.
He married Mother. Her
Yep.
name was Christie. But here's Peter and I, and all of our
Manleys.
friends were
Those
his boys that were delivering papers, and they
Gotcha.
would call him Mr. Manley, and he'd
Yeah.
answer to it.
And he just
Yeah.
went along with it.
Yeah.
Because that was
Yeah.
the,
He was just
that
a
was the
kind,
name.
wonderful
Yeah.
man.
Neat guy.
yeah. So, all right. So that's when, so I don't think I know much about Daddy Dave. I don't know a lot of the history of him. How long were they married? Daddy Dave
Oh,
and
well
Mamie?
over 40 years.
Okay.
Daddy Dave was born in Iowa on a dairy farm.
Mhm.
He was the older brother of two, his
Mm-hmm.
brother Carl, and he was expected to take over the farm as the older boy,
Okay.
and he wanted no part of that. And I don't know what year it was, but he said he was about 18 or 19, and he and a buddy got in a jalopy, and they drove across country.
Heading west.
And he left home. And he said, there were just fields. He said, sometimes we'd have to stop and undo a fence to go through. He said, we were driving through fields and
Wow.
things. He and his buddy, they wanted to go to California.
Yeah.
And so his brother, Carl, married Jenny, and they took over the farm. And they came to La Jolla a couple
You
of
eventually
times.
met them.
Yeah.
So they were married for many years. How long did he serve in the coast? Excuse me, the
Just
Coast
during
Guard?
the war.
Just during the war. Once the war was out. So what did he do post-war?
He went to work for the San Diego Union. Yeah.
Which
Which was the San Diego Daily newspaper.
Oh, okay, the paper,
And he
yeah,
was
I
the
gotcha.
one that brought the papers to the paper boys.
He's the
and
district
managed-
manager,
Gotcha.
is what they call him.
Okay.
One thing that after he came to California, he was in Hollywood, and he intimated that he worked in the movie industry.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And he intimated that he knew John Wayne pretty well.
Okay.
And we kept trying to
Yeah,
get
I wanna see
a
him.
story out of
Oh,
this guy.
yeah.
And Daddy Dave would not
Not
tell
tell
us. He would have closed
Really?
mouth. He might have been an extra of some time,
Yeah,
or
but
he
Yeah.
he
might
knew
have been,
John
Yeah.
Wayne.
yeah, or he might have been in love with an actress. We
Yeah,
don't know
who
what he
knows?
did.
Yeah,
Who
but,
knows?
but his first cousin, Aunt Fran,
Yeah.
was living in Los Angeles
Yeah.
with her aunt, I believe, and that drove him there. And he and Aunt Fran bummed around together
Oh, yeah.
all their life, and as did Peter and
I think Aunt Fran was a wild child. She was,
Yeah.
And so you don't know. It's always intrigued me. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to know.
Yeah.
Maybe some day I'll get to find out.
I think
Maybe
Aunt
we'll get some
Fran
answers.
really loved my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, her whole
Yeah.
life.
So they were pretty close.
Very close. Yeah.
That's fun.
All right.
All right, back to some pictures here.
Okay.
So this is Pop.
Yeah, Pop.
Pop.
Maddie.
That's
Clem,
Clem.
and this is
And that's
Bud,
Bud.
and
So
this is Peter.
where's Bill at in this picture?
Probably
Taking the picture.
Okay.
You'll notice that the only pictures we have him are always around the Christmas tree.
They love Christmas.
Yeah, and there's Peter. And
Okay.
there's me,
Okay.
and there's Pop, around the Christmas tree. So Peter had to be
4, 5.
No.
3, 5, maybe.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're a child.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
a she's a
So
2-year-old,
what do
2 or 3
You
year
got
old.
to be 2 years old there, so
Yeah.
I
2 or
had to be
3.
6. then.
6. Okay.
Christmas was a
Yeah.
big deal for these folks.
Okay, and this is Uncle Clem,
Okay.
and at his confirmation, and that's my daddy Bill.
Okay.
Sort of took, because their mother Paula died early, and we
Oh.
don't know what she died of, but she complained of stomach pain all the
Hold on a
time.
second. So, did you ever physically meet Paula?
Oh no,
I didn't know that.
no, no, no.
Okay,
no.
so you just have pictures
No.
of
By this time,
your grandmother.
by this
that you
time,
know.
she was gone.
Yeah.
by
So
this-
she passed
and-
away.
and-
Now, did Pop ever remarry?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
But after she died, my dad sort of took Clem under
Yeah,
his arm,
big
and
brother.
this was Clem's confirmation day.
Mm-hmm.
This is Pop, and that's Mother holding
Mm-hmm.
me, and I don't know where we were, on an outing somewhere. They're the 3 boys. My dad, Clem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're
or
short.
Bud, yeah,
I can tell.
and Bud. Yeah.
That's
And
funny. They
these
look like
pictures-
a more formal version of the Three Stooges.
They were very musical.
Oh, really? They played
Very
music?
musical. Daddy Bill could play the piano by ear,
Mm-hmm.
and he could play jazz on the piano. I remember one good memory of standing and looking over the edge of the stand-up piano, and he was just playing,
Mm-hmm. Playing
like
the piano.
crazy.
How old was Daddy Bill when he died?
36.
36. So he was a good 10 years older than your mom.
Yeah. And
That's young.
this was them in Chicago. Pop used to make his own beer and wine in the cellar.
I don't know what barren wine is.
Beer.
Oh, beer and wine. I gotcha.
They were all like their
Yeah.
alcohol.
They like their alcohol.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But you can see here, Mother was tall
Tall
and
and
slim. Yes. Peter's,
where he got that
That's
from.
right.
Yeah.
And I never got it. But,
Yeah.
but anyway.
So you had mentioned, and but she was your mother was a model
no.
early on. Who was the model in your family?
And Daddy Jack's second wife, not
Oh, okay.
Jerry.
That's a whole nother story for another
Yeah,
day.
different.
Okay.
Yeah.
But with her height and her figure,
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
she was
I
very
was
elegant
told
looking.
she met, this is what I was told
Mm-hmm.
from Mother years later when she and I were living together before she died. She was going to a finishing school while your dad was going to Berkeley, and they were right close to one another, and that's how they would get together for dances and so forth, and ball games. And
Mm-hmm. So
things.
did your mom talk much about
Oh.
Peter's biological father?
Before she died, after Henry had died and I was living with my mother,
Mm-hmm.
she would sit in her chair and cry at night
Mm-hmm.
for Peter's father.
Yeah.
She said, I still dream about him. I hear his voice in my head. He evidently had a wonderful singing voice.
Okay.
She never got over him.
Yeah. All them
It was
years.
a real tragedy. And I believe it was her downfall from her father, the way he handled
Mm-hmm. The way it was
And then
handled.
telling her that he'd been looking
Then
for
right
all
on.
those
Yeah.
years.
Why would you say that?
Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's,
Well, you wonder, what my father would have turned out to be if he had to marry
sure.
Yes.
and and take
Yeah.
care of the
Be a
new
father.
family.
Yeah.
Mother's told me that your father was still in college
Yeah.
and that his parents would not allow him to get involved. They wanted him to finish, and they told him that they would not pay for any more schooling if he
If he
they
pursued,
they would disown him.
if he continued to pursue it.
Yeah, yeah.
So since we're on that, so years later, you're able to kind of do some research on your biological
Yeah,
father.
many years later.
Many years later. And what come of him? What did you discover?
Well, what I discovered is that he became very famous. I think he told you, librarian,
Yes.
and he set up libraries in Africa and
traveled the world.
And yes, it became very famous and ended up being the professor emeritus, whatever you call them, of librarianism, whatever that is,
Yeah, yeah.
in University of Pittsburgh.
So he's a very well-educated man.
Yes, he had one daughter.
Uh-huh.
And
have you ever reached out to her?
We communicated for a while.
Okay.
But she was, I don't think she was as excited about finding out that she had a brother that I was as finding out I had
You
a
had a
sister.
sister, right.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
read the obituary that your dad's friend wrote about your dad after he died, and I don't have that paper, but I remember you
How long
saying
did he live?
80 years old.
80 years old?
He died of
Okay.
a heart attack. But here's the thing that
But you never got the chance to meet him.
Oh,
No.
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 In this obituary that his friend wrote about his life, other than the wonderful success that he had in his
Yeah.
career, he was a golfer.
Okay.
He loved jazz music.
Probably could dance.
He was a voracious reader.
Yeah.
Everything that my brother is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
excuse me for interrupting.
That's okay.
Finish what you're saying.
Well, I'm
It's
finished.
Not polite when you jump
No,
in there.
it's
but
okay.
I want to say something.
no,
Say it.
I want you to say something, honey.
I'll send you all the information I have, his picture and
Okay.
and all that stuff. I'll send
Yeah.
it to you.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Like
you
it.
find out, how old were you when you decided to pursue that? Because you found out
About 6
before
years
you went
ago.
into the Air
I
Force.
was still married to Milt.
So I know, but you found out about your father before you went to the Air Force.
No.
Correct? I thought.
Well, I
with the
knew
birth
found out
certificate-
that I had
Yes,
a
that you
different
had
name.
a different name. Right. So, but you didn't pursue it until well later on in life.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. It was probably, what, 12, 15 years ago?
Oh, I think sooner than that.
Early
In
2000s.
fact, what I'll do is that before I'll try to get a package made up and bring it down to you before you leave. tomorrow.
Yeah, just curious to know
Yeah.
some of the history there. Where did he end up passing away at? You said he was in
Yeah, he retired and they were in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah, his
So-
daughter and
He was all the way
daughter-
in Seattle when he met Grant, and then he made his way all the way to the other
he
side,
was all over the world.
all over the world, as a librarian.
Setting up.
Yeah, I didn't think of how it's more of like a science when you're developing the
I imagine.
libraries per se and getting all the books in and
An
everything.
organization.
It must be
Yeah,
something that.
yeah, he would have been very well educated. I can only imagine that a librarian's kind of a lost art.
I would, today it is, yeah.
for sure, with everything
Yeah,
going
there
digital.
was a write-up in, I forget what magazine, it was I sent, you had all that, didn't you? Right, yeah, but I have it, I'll make copies of it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
And you won't believe how different we look. He has a square face,
Really?
yeah, and dark hair and really stern look. Do you remember that picture?
Not as
Not as happy-go-lucky
gentle,
as I am.
not as near as good
but
looking.
as I said again, Peter favors mothers.
Right. So you got
Physically.
Mimi's looks,
Yeah.
but his same likes and interests.
Genetic, that's what hit me.
That's crazy.
The
golf,
traits.
the jazz music.
Yes, I mean, Peter would
uh,
never have known that, and yet they're the same interests
Yeah,
as an adult.
that's a-
you know,
that
that is fascinating.
very fast.
All right, so we'll get back to that once we get some information.